Cheeto chocolate, like Mary. You want to use your put Cheeto chocolate. When you want so easy on me body. How when it hot man them them. The man look at this man them.
Yes, where the God man them there. Well, the God man them in the place. Kevin and Courtney in the place, and we're gonna be having some exciting guests in the midst of us this afternoon. It's March 12th, 2025, and we're looking at managing pressures as a man. Do you know that the men them go under all pressure, unbelievable pressure, stress, and the like? Well, want you to know this is the mailbox here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. unless it's a holiday. This is where we challenge, encourage, and empower our men to become all they were created to become. The mailbox is brought to you today by Solid PVC Pipes, manufactured in Jamaica by Fosrich Company Limited.
When you say Fosrich, you say electrical, SWA cables, conduits, transformers, and breakers. When you say Fosrich, you say lighting, chandeliers, and more. When you say Fosrich, you say LEDs and solar water heaters. Fosrich is electrical, lighting, solar, and LEDs. Visit us today, Kingston, Maniville, and Montego Bay. Fosrich.
Thank you, thank you.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man. I am a man.
Man. So, mental health remains one of the most pressing challenges of our time. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 4 people globally will experience a mental health condition in their lifetime. In Jamaica, 3% of the population lives with a depressive disorder, while 4.1% struggles with anxiety. The economic impact is equally staggering. Mental illness is projected to cost Jamaica US $2.76 billion lost in economic production between 2015 and 2030, making it one of the most financially burdensome non-communicable diseases, second only to cardiovascular disease. So the demand for mental health services is rising exponentially, with public health institution visits climbing from 90,000 in 2013 to over 132,000 in 2016, according to the Ministry of Health and Wellness data. Finally, men are less likely than women to receive formal mental health support of any kind. So this is the program designed for men with guests who are men, hosted by men. It's aired every Wednesday unless it's a holiday at 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101, the family station. It's the mailbox. By the way, I'm Kevin Bailey. My co-host is right here. Courtney, I think you're muted. Courtney, look if you're muted.
Oh, yes, it's Courtney.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Not sure.
Youthful exuberance, I believe it was.
Yeah, keep young.
Thank you.
Keep young.
Good afternoon to everyone, to all our listeners. Thanks for making Love 101 your station of choice. We're talking about the topic managing pressures as a man. And indeed, mental health remains one of the most pressing challenges of our time. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 4 people globally will experience a mental health condition in their lifetime. That's 25%. In Jamaica, 3% of the population lives with a depressive disorder. We'll be hearing more about what is a depressive disorder, what's mental health all about by our guest. Kev?
Yeah, definitely, Courtney. It's going to be a good show. Our guests this evening are Dr. Paul Smith, clinical psychologist, and Reverend Dr. Courtney Faulkner, founder, chairman of Talk About It Limited. And we're going to have the conversation. We know how time flies when we're having fun. But we just want to make the point that Monday we're having 2 distinguished gentlemen, very qualified, and men who are making a massive contribution in the area of mental health. Not only mental health, but the whole dealing with the individual as well. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Paul Smith. Dr. Smith is a clinical psychologist with over 15 years of clinical experience. He operates at Ward Mount Medical Center, that's 37A Ward Avenue in Mandeville. He is an associate counselor at Family Life Ministries, minister of religion, and primary director at Love and Restoration Ministries. He is a justice of the peace, a marriage officer, grief management counselor, family counselor, premarital counselor, conference speaker, and motivational speaker. He diagnoses and treats mental illness and mental disorders. His motto is, if I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not be in vain. And welcome, Dr. Paul Smith. Welcome again to the mailbox.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, listeners. It's so good to be back.
All right. Happy New Year. Good to have you.
Good to have you.
Hey, Courtney, you want to do the other one?
We'll also be having my namesake, the Reverend Dr. Courtney Faulkner, and he's founder, chairman of Talk About It Limited. He's Reverend Dr. Courtney Faulkner, and he's the longest serving chaplain and psychologist in the Jamaica Constabulary Force with 26 years of dedicated service. He was recently honored with the Jamaica Civil Service Long Service Medal. He has made a lasting impact on the government and people of Jamaica. With 38 years in ministry, he seamlessly integrates theology and psychology to transform lives. He holds a master's degree in counseling psychology, Caribbean Graduate School of Theology, a doctorate in transformational leadership, organizational transformation, Bakke Graduate University member, Jamaican Psychologist Society, and he's a licensed psychologist by the Council of Professionals Supplementary to Medicine to Practice Counseling in Jamaica. He's a Justice of the Peace in St. Andrews, a marriage officer of Jamaica, ordained Minister of Religion, Board Director, Public Sector Employees Cooperative Credit Union since 2012, and he's an entrepreneur. Beyond his professional achievements, Dr. Faulkner is a devoted husband of 27 years and a proud father, embodying the principles of faith, service, and leadership in every aspect of his life. Welcome, Dr. Courtney Faulkner. How are you today?
Thank you, my namesake. Oh, that was very long, man. Good to be here. Good to be here.
Welcome, Dr. Faulkner. And you know, Courtney, I can call these people brethren, you know. If I exalt myself, I'm going to call it for them brethren and brethren. But
No problem.
I can understand that, definitely, without question. But man, remember, we want to hear from you. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Love 101 FM Jamaica. Remember, you can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125 or call on our studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. Also, we are on TikTok at Love 101 FM.
That's right. Ladies, what we want to say, you know, we can't do without you, ladies. And we want to include you in this afternoon show. So the question we're asking you is, are we doing enough as a society to deal with the issue that men are facing? Are we doing enough as a society to deal with the issue that men are facing? You can participate in the program by leaving us a message via WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube. Females, remember, no calls or voice notes allowed. Encourage the man them. This is their space to allow the man them to do the calling and the voice notes. Or you can interact with us on the other areas in social media. So, yeah, Courtney,
let's push ahead. I think we should just go straight into this one.
Yeah.
We have two guests, and I think time is of the essence, and this is a very important topic. It's just since afternoon I got a punctured tire with a screw in it, and the young lady was just saying men aren't allowed to express themselves, and so emotionally, because I have to speak at a funeral on the 22nd of March, a young man who hung himself right in front of his child, his son, and there's so much talk about it in the community, and it is definitely a big question. Men and pressure. How do we deal with it? And so we have two guests today, Dr. Paul Smith and Dr. Courtney Faulkner, who will help us to navigate and to investigate and find some sort of great response to how we deal with these questions. Kev.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna go straight in. Before we head into the main discussion, it's now time for us to get into a segment we call draft, where we preliminarily open the way to our main segment. So we want to ask Dr. Paul Smith, Dr. Courtney Faulkner, and I guess I take it in that order. Are we doing enough as a society to deal with the issues that men are facing? Yea or nay, and then give us a little response as to why you give that.
No, and it's a work in progress. I think generally people are open more to talking about mental illness because there's still a taboo on it. Men in particular, need to be able to express themselves, and we have a way to go with that one, and I'll talk some about the societal expectation and the narrative that we have created as a society as to who a man is, how a man should behave, or should a man should act, right? Society has a narrative and a number of men are entrapped in it. But there's hope because men can get help, men can express themselves, men can deal with mental, psychological pressure. So it's a work in progress.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Smith. I appreciate your response there. I know we're gonna delve into some more details. Dr. Courtney Faulkner, your response to the question: are we doing enough as a society to deal with the issues that men are facing?
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks again for having me. I want to answer in a two-pronged way. I believe that we have never reached at a point where we will be able to do enough for men. But I do want to celebrate and applaud many organizations, to include churches, who have been doing a lot. And may I say, this program, Mailbox, is doing its part. The challenge we're having is not so much the amount of work that is being done. The problem is to change the mindset too of our society, and for men to access the help when they are needed. So I don't understand to say that we're not doing enough. So I can't say with conviction, right? But from my vantage point, I know that a lot have been done and still being done as it relates to providing support for men. But I think from my experience, from my vantage point, I believe the challenge that I have and other counselors would have had and pastors would have had is that something about the men, right, that it's a work in progress, but in terms of taking up these offers. So, and I'll say more in that regard. So it's a yes or no, if you understand where I'm going.
And Dr. Faulkner or Dr.
Yes.
Smith, how did we get to this point? Sometimes I like to find out what is the root cause, because if we do, most often we're able to then, once we identify, we can tend to fix. And how do we reverse it? Who's going first? The last was the first, Dr. Courtney.
Yes, I don't know what the reversal, because as my colleague rightly said, it's work in progress. I want to start firstly though by saying how we have raised our boys, raised them, and we understand the practical example that a girl falls to the ground and she is immediately allowed to cry and she's embraced and say, listen, sorry, sweetheart, sorry, baby. And if a boy falls to the ground, right, or responds, no bother with the crying, no bother with it. So immediately from a child, the experience in terms of how he was parented is that of suppression, right? In other words, big man don't cry. Mm-hmm. You can't really express yourself. And part of being helped is to first acknowledge that you have an issue. And if they're raised in such a way that when things are tough, when you fall to the ground and you can't cry as a boy, then what you expect as it relates to when that boy translates to an adult. So part of the challenge is how we have raised our boys and the stigma. Just recently, I believe my daughter shared with me about a saying on social media that you must what? Hold up your stress, or man hold up your stress. I think it was something that went viral. In other words, the man came home, she came and brought an issue to him as her partner. And he was saying to her, babes, I'm going through my issues too. And, wanted to express to her what he was going. I said, no. Man, hold up your stress, basically. Hold up your pressure. You see?
Wow.
So,
Dr. Faulkner,
yes.
we're gonna come back to this, but we have our first break.
Right.
Let's have our first break. Then when we come back, we take it up, and then we ask Dr. Paul Smith to give his response as well. This is the mailbox. Courtney and Kevin in the place with Dr. Courtney Faulkner and Dr. Paul Smith. We go to the studio. We'll be right back after this.
Pretty man, I am a man. Man, I am a man, yes. Strong man.
Welcome back to the program. It's the mailbox. Kevin and Courtney here as your co-hosts for the past 12 years, and our two guests, Dr. Paul Smith and Dr. Courtney Faulkner. We're talking about managing pressures as a man. And before we went to the break, we're speaking with Dr. Courtney Faulkner. We were trying to find out, how did we ever get to this position of men not being able to express their emotions? And he was giving us a case study of a young boy and a young girl falling to the ground. You may continue, Dr. Faulkner.
Right. So the point I was making is that the in terms of how the boy was raised, and again of the expected role that a man should play within that of a relationship, I believe that those two scenarios or two spectrums, I believe, would have impacted adversely against men to be open and to be willing to share in their weakest moments. So those are two I want to highlight at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Faulkner. Dr. Smith, your own evaluation, where we're coming from, the genesis of it, and why is it perpetuated? Why we're constantly having this thing after years of liberation from slavery and colonialism and so forth? Talk to us, Dr. Smith.
I'm happy you went to as far as slavery, because it started there. So I see it as an ecosystem, right? So there is our history of how men were viewed, how men were used, right? They were physically breeders, they were not They're taught to be family oriented. They were split away from the family. But I leave that history and I go to home and I agree with Dr. Faulkner because home is a very important. And so it becomes intergenerational. It's like it's a baton that is passed on as to how men are viewed, as to how boys are raised, as to how boys are taught in schools, right? So Dr. Faulkner gave the thing, so you still have Jane and you still have Tom, and Jane goes outside and she has a fall and she gets a bruise and she starts to cry, and mommy or daddy, whoever it is, but in a number of cases, mommy hears the war and investigate what it is, and she say, I ran outside and I fell. And mommy might say, oh my God, poor soul. Come, let me hug you. And the boy might run outside and have this similar incident, and the what is echoing in his head, shut up your mouth, boy, what you cry for? You're sissy, you're too soft, right? So from that early age, the boys have that narrative that it's not okay. It's not a manly thing to express that I'm feeling hurt, to express the fact that I'm feeling sad, I am feeling disappointed. I have failed at a particular thing. It's not the manly thing. So society now, the home is the society, and society perpetuates who a man should be, how a man should talk, rough voice, man a wall, man a lion, right? And so the boys have this narrative as well. The parents have it, and it becomes a vicious cycle, right? It becomes a vicious cycle.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
I don't know if I could just chime in for a minute, Kevin. That's 1 minute.
Sure.
Because we're still on the dynamics in terms of how men relate vis-a-vis that of women. And one of the recurring decimals that I find within counseling sessions, especially when I'm dealing with relational issues, man and woman issues, you find the main theme is that, boy, in the talk, in the reason. And again, I'm just building on what we have laid as it relates to that of the narrative that was created from a child. I just want to put that in it.
Dr. Courtney, I hope my producer will excuse me today for skipping some of the things, because I think we want to get in as much for our men and boys who are listening in, who are so affected by even what you just mentioned, that men don't talk. Men tend not to go to counseling, and yet we're talking about managing pressure as a man. How can we move our men from that position to where we want them to be, especially when we're talking about non-emotional beings, as society would have us seem to be? How do we encourage our men to get help, to seek help, to know that talking is where it's at? Dr. Paul.
All right. So all sectors need to be involved. The church needs to be involved. The home, psychoeducation, support group, one-on-one man talk, mentorship, right? Men have a lot to say, but it's stored up inside. We have to educate spouses as well, that they need to give the man a chance to be vulnerable. So there are times when men do not want to be vulnerable because of how he might be seen by the spouse or the girlfriend or the child, right? So this space must be created. If a man wants professional help, the man can reach out, because there's nothing wrong. There's strength in your weakness to want to reach out. It takes a strong man to say, boy, I need help. I feel as if I can't, do it on my own. So when men come to me for counseling, I big them up. If it is couples therapy, I big up the man for actually attending the session. Because I can tell you, gentlemen, probably about 85% of the marital issues, the woman comes because the man says, right, you must go. And I'm careful too, when the woman calls as the initiator of the conversation, that I don't take the story over the phone. I say, give the man a chance to come. Because sometimes the man believes that the counselor is going to take the side of the woman.
Yes.
And he comes with that defense mechanism, and even counseling, he might not want to talk because he has a narrative as to who's going to get the right and who's going to get the wrong. So we have to strip off the layers and start talking to men. Men who are expressing themselves, talk to another man and mentor. Church give them an opportunity to express themselves. One last thing, is that sometimes the men say to me in counseling that I don't say much, because when I say much, sometimes what I say is used against me in a quarrel or a discussion. So they just keep it like that, right? So it's multi-layered, but it takes psychoeducation and sensitization and mentorship and so much more to unravel what is happening to our men.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Smith.
Kevin, you heard the point that Dr. Paul just brought up. I remember many years ago we did a live down by West Avenue. I think it's Caribbean Graduate School of Theology as well. And a young man got up and he said, Pastor, you know why we don't go counseling? It's because you counselors take the woman's side even before we got there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I heard Dr. Paul said it, it just jumped to memory, because it was like a light bulb that came on in my head that many of our men already believe that as counselors, as psychologists, we're swayed to the side of the woman.
Yeah.
How can we help to navigate and to fix that misnomer? How do we do that, Dr. Courtney?
Just to concur with Dr. Paul, that it is a multifaceted approach that we must take. Can't be a one way to restore and to help our men. I believe, though, the first place that we need to start is that of normalizing seeking help. I think there is a block and there is a thinking that if I were to seek help, it's a sign of weakness. And even the music that has a lot of influence, and especially in the era of social media, where the music, the songs that are being produced, right? It's somewhat numb the man in such a way that he feels that if he should step out of the status quo and to accept that he, as an issue, is going to be ridiculed, right? So I think that we need to work on that. The other thing too, I believe that we can do is that we need to bring the message to the men, right? And I love what he mentioned, Brother Courtney mentioned about the live broadcast. I think too often that we expect that our men to change where they are and not meeting them. So that programs like these need to be in Halfway Tree, downtown, down on the corner. And we need more men like myself and Paul to be on the battlefront out there for them to understand that, listen, we are real men. Nothing is wrong with us. You see? Because, you show me your company, the persons who you associate with most times influence your behavior. And when you can have real men talking to men, I remember about a month ago, a brother called me and he said to me, "Boy, you don't want me to call it daddy. But talk about a big man, I said, why? What happened? He said, believe me, I've never had a father. And the care that you offer to me is that I can tell you everything. So one of the things that we have to get back, whether through the Ministry of Health, through the churches, is to rebuild the family, to ensure that fathers are there. And that's part of the problem. Men don't know to relate about their own issues because they were not exposed to it from a child. They don't know. They don't understand. Because it's the grandmother, is the aunt, is the nursery, right? Women again. And so you have much relationship with man and man. And
Dr. Faulkner, again, sir, we have to pause you, but we're gonna take our next break. We're going to the studio. Courtney and Kevin in the place with Dr. Paul Smith and Dr. Courtney Falk. Now we'll go to the studio. We'll be right back after this.
Man, I am a man, yes.
The time by Grace to Move is
6 p.m. It's Love 101. You're listening to The Mailbox.
We've seen a lot of our customers make some good moves over the years. Whether it's sharing a hug with a friend you haven't seen in a long time or sharing a meal, Grace has been there. So let's keep making these moments together, because rest assured, every time you choose Grace, you know you're making a good move.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man.
Welcome back. This is The Mailbox, here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. on your favorite radio station, Love 101 FM. Courtney Morrison, Kevin Bailey in the place, and we have two very distinguished guests with us, Dr. Courtney Faulkner, Dr. Paul Smith. Gentlemen, as we continue the conversation, could you define to our listeners what is mental health? Or, you know, how do we know we're in a good place? Because I forgot to check myself and check Courtney. How we know we have good mental health? And you don't feel that with your own practice, you know, Dr. Courtney Faulkner, you're talk about it limited. Talk to us a little bit about that and what is your objective of meeting the needs of mental health. And then Dr. Paul Smith, you and your practice and your work, I want you to dovetail it as well. So, gentlemen.
Thank you, Kevin. Mental health, really, in a simple definition, because I'm trying to reach the math, right, is a state of mental wellness in order for one to cope well with life stressors. And life stressors can be from the high JPS bill, water rate. It could be stressors from a marriage, a relationship, a bad child, you know, or child giving problems. So it is that ability to cope in such a way that it does not increase tension that becomes overwhelming, that you lose control how to manage, basically, right? And that is defined because all of us are exposed to stressors. None is immune, but is when you're able to learn the skills through experiences, through counseling, through other means, where you build that coping mechanism to be able to buffer, to give that buffer, and to prepare you for you to have that state of well-being and mental wellness. So that, in a simple way, a nutshell.
Thank you, Dr. Courtney. Dr. Paul.
Yes.
Want to hear from
All right.
you.
So I agree with Dr. Courtney, and I might add to that mental health has a lot to do with how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. So your thought processes will affect your emotion and consequently your behavior. And I agree, it's having coping mechanism, you know, how to adjust, how to adapt to your surroundings, how to be resilient. And resilient does not only mean that you bounce back, it also means that you grow from an adverse situation. It's how you remain humble at life's challenges, you know, and look for opportunities in every adversity. You know, that is mental health, good mental health. When you're not being able to cope and adjust and adapt, and you become maladaptive in your behavior, then your mental health, your well-being comes into question, right? So that is simply put as well, your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior, your ability to cope and adjust and adapt and to be resilient.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Smith.
No, there's a part B, Courtney. Just one.
Yes.
Dr. Paul. The part B is what pushed you to start talk about it limited, and what are the objectives there? Because you're dealing with mental health, stressors, etc. Talk to us a little bit about that.
All right. So in a nutshell, in 2021, I was faced with a very life-threatening illness. I had to do surgery within 2 months of finding out. And let me say this. 2 words: support system, that held me together. And the support system, whether through the church and more so with my family. And I said to myself, if I didn't have that support system, then what would have happened to me mentally, emotionally? And I asked the question further: what about those who are going through other issues in life as a man, but they don't have the family support around them, they don't have the church around them? Then how are they able to talk about it? Hence the cliche, talk about it. And therefore, I did not want to have the traditional setup where you call a counseling center, because again, I'm trying to go against the stigma, or to go into a counseling office where you have to wear full black, or you cover your head, or you wear a big hat because you don't want anybody to see you. How could I bring that hope or help to persons? And therefore, what better way to do that than to use technology? And therefore, what we have created is that of an app where you're able to download, as it is now, on your Android phones, and you're able to be connected to licensed therapists right where you are, whether in your motor car, whether at home, whether on the plane or overseas. You can connect. So I'm bringing help to those who are in need. And I think more so with this question about men and not wanting to be helped, I think this is a way, because there are 3 modalities. They can either video call their therapist, they can either voice call their therapist, or they can text message their therapist.
That's fantastic, and I'm hoping that persons are here. I'm hoping at the end we can also give more information on that too of the program, just to remind persons. I think that is excellent. Men and support systems seem not to be synonymous, and somehow we have to change that as well. There are so many men who don't have that sort of support system, and I believe, for me, that's one of the main reasons we're not doing as well as we ought to. When it comes on to empathy, compassion, and understanding, there is a lot that is missing when we're talking to our men. Dr. Paul, it's the support system. Yes, it's quite necessary. I was trying to find not expedient. It is vital.
Yeah.
Are there other groups we can talk about? How do we get our men? We heard from Dr. Courtney and his app, and trust me, bro, I'm back out in the colloquial now. Big things, that veteran. And I'm hoping persons are listening. Are there any other support groups that we can talk about? Mogava, which I'm a part of, I know is instituting a safe space for our men to come and talk.
Yes, and I encourage. Sorry, go ahead. I encourage more groups.
Go on, that's the question.
Yes, I'm encouraging. You mentioned that, and I just an experience that I am the director of a ministry called Love and Restoration Ministries, and we do reach out to men. And I remember about 2 years ago, we just went to the community. It was Father's Day, and we went and we just connected all the men we see on the street, those smoking ganja, those who just chilling. And we took them to a building, and we honored them. We picked them up. We treated them. We gave them ice cream, and we gave them a chance to talk. There were no women around, just man and man. And we gave them certificates. Some of them, the face was lit up, and they said, the first I ever get a certificate in my life, right? I remember St. Elizabeth at the head departments a few years ago. And I instituted a Father of Excellence Forum. and I ran it for about 7 years straight. And we look for all the men around and the exemplary ones and the ones with the mentorship. And we challenge them and we talk to them, and the men had a safe space to talk. But when they heard other men talking about similar instances, that's a support. And it compelled them to talk to the point where the program couldn't end. And so a support system where somebody knows that, boy, I am not alone. Somebody else feels the way I feel, that kind of thing. And I won't be judged. I won't be judged. You know, I won't be scorned for expressing how I feel. You know, there was a man who raised 3 children. The mother could not be found. And the only thing is that it's just men who leave children. Women leave children too. And there's a man who combed the daughter here and see them too high, and I pick them up, highlight them. Men want to know that they are valued, right? That they are important, and we have to reinforce that and punch it in and affirm them and say, man, and you're important, and you need to express yourself. So the church needs to do it. I know that churches are doing it. Give them the forum, because sometimes we have meetings and we think, boy, the woman, they must do it too. Sometimes the men want to be there just alone, to talk and to be free. You know, so I have started something, and I commend, you know, Dr. Courtney for what he's doing, but we need more of this. We saturate the entire Jamaica where men have a chance to express themselves and to be, and there's no hammer of judgment over your head to say you're less man. You find what I'm saying? If you are going to help men, we have to reach them where they are. If we judge them, we can't help them.
Wow. If we judge them,
we can't. If I may just say one point that Paul raised. You know, when they keep in dancing community, they keep it under the light, the street light. When they're doing things, they're out there. I have found that church, I don't know if we have missed the mark, but we look at evangelism only as preaching the gospel and not seeing the holistic approach of men. So and no wonder you have a men's month or a men's day, and it's the same woman in the church. We need to find a way that we can close the doors. I don't know if we have gotten in this context where the church is just within the 4 walls, and we can just go to a bar, go to Caymanas Park, go sit down with them and talk to them. I don't know, and that is, I think we have missed the mark in terms of our ministry, and that's part of the problem why we're not reaching most of our men, especially in our churches. And
Amen. Dr. Courtney, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We have missed what evangelism is. We think it's about preaching, when sometimes it's just about sitting down talking with somebody, creating relationships. That's how the world evangelizes. And we think it is from a pulpit necessarily. And most often we miss it. Once we are forming relationships where persons can trust and speak with us and share, then that's when we will impact. You know, the theme for Love this year, 32 years, sharing hope, touching hearts. Did I get it right? Touching lives. But when we realize that it's about relationships and relating to individuals, which is what God wants us to know is important, then we will not have the impact that we can truly have. We have far too often segregated ourselves and put ourselves in compartment and missed it. We're up on our final break, and this is the mailbox. I'm Courtney Morrison. Sitting in also is Kevin Bailey, as we've been doing for 12 years. This year make 13. Kevin, well, go on, you know.
Wow.
With Dr. Paul Smith and Dr. Courtney Faulkner, managing pressure as a man. The program is the mailbox. Back to the studio. We'll soon come back.
Yes. Strong man, integrity man, man.
When you say phosphorus, you say electrical. SWA cables, conduits, transformers, and breakers. When you say phosphorus, you say lighting, chandeliers, and more. When you say phosphorus, you say LEDs and solar water heaters. Phosphorus is electrical, lighting, solar, and LEDs. Visit us today, Kingston, Manville, and Montego Bay. Phosphorus.
Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze Plus, an air freshener that delivers continuous scent for up to 50 days when you plug it in low mode. Indulge in wonderful scents for weeks with Febreze.
I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man.
Welcome back. This is the Mailbox here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. on your favorite radio station. Courtney Morrison, Kevin Bailey in the place. Our very special guest, Dr. Paul Smith and Reverend Dr. Courtney Faulkner. Gentlemen, as we head into the last stretch, can you tell us what are some of the common conditions or disorders or challenges that you are seeing popping up in your practice, in your counseling, that men are going through? What are those common things that are happening? And can you share with us how can the church help? If you have one or two thoughts. Dr. Smith, let's start with you.
All right, so men go through stress. Men go through depression. And sometimes the depression becomes a disorder, right? Based on the severity of the depression. So a disorder is that which impairs your normal functioning, right? Men go through anxiety just the same. Men go to post-traumatic stress disorder just the same. Because I talked to a number of men and the way they were grown up, the way they were treated, right? And it all depends where you were grown up as well. So some men grew up in some kind of communities where they saw violence, man a chop man, and they hear gunshots as a little boy, and they grew up with that kind of thing. And they try to put it together. But when you create a safe space for them in counseling, and they know they can talk, some even break down and say for years they have been carrying an issue, you know? Some become suicidal in thoughts. Some have attempted suicide, right? So we have the stress, we have the depression, we have the anxiety, and some men go through grief and loss, right? Which is another story all by itself. They grieve a relationship where they say they have failed, it never worked out. It might be infidelity, and they grieve that as well. They think they fail as a man, you know. And I mentioned one last thing, and you talk about the church, and the church is important. But school is also very important. And I've always had a concern as to how our boys are taught in school. Yes, right? How boys are taught, and they're taught as if, you know, it's kind of female-oriented. In our church, some of our churches too, is female-oriented, and they meant to fit in, you know? So the churches need to create that safe space. You know, whether it is take them out of the church wall and go to somewhere and sit down and then talk, not start to include yourself. But the church is powerful and can do so much. But take them out of the walls of the church and take them somewhere. Domino has some reasoning, football, and have some get the men active, but get them to talk. That is important. Right? So it's not worship, it's communication, it's reasoning, it's leveling the thing. And I say one last thing, that you can't help somebody if you need help. And some of our church leaders need help as well, right? Hurting people pass on hurt to others. And if you are not in a position where you can offer that leadership, because you too have not passed certain things are not resolved, they are still emotionally painful, then leaders need to make themselves available to get help as well.
No, definitely. That is crucial. Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. Dr. Faulkner, your response.
Right. Just to build on what my brother Paul said, the whole matter of trauma is a big issue. unresolved issues of the past, right? So it can become a depression, the anxiety issues also. And you find that they play out, especially for men, in terms of substance abuse. So you find that men will now flock the rum bars or for their outlets. You go to Caymanas Park, they're there because that is their way of distraction. And then you have addiction. Then you find another level where it moves to that of abusing their loved ones. So all these things are complex features in terms of the issues that men face. And for me, in my own experience and my own practice, right, because I deal with relational issues and persons who are in marriages or relationships, and you find that these I would say challenges or disorders will create further pressure that the man now has to deal with, and many times he may escape that by having a lot of women in order to find that we have escaped. Now, I do agree, Paul, right, that it can't be just for the church. But since you asked the question of the church, we have to find a way of mentorship, right? A mentorship program, right? That from children church, right up to adulthood. A program to help our boys understand the nuances as it relates to what is it to be a man. And I think, my approach is sometimes, is not that of the traditional approach. Because I believe sometimes it will just close the Bible and talk real talk with our brothers. We understand that Jesus came. We understand that he walked on water, right? But what answer do you have for me? So when I go back home, I can be more empowered to deal with my wife or to deal with my issues. And I think there's a missing link there in terms of the ministry of the church, right? The women's ministry sometimes flourish, and the men ministry sometimes start and it limps because we have not put enough within the resources in order to strengthen our brothers and our men. And last but not least, as I said, and I'm going to emphasize this, that we need to meet men where they are. Close the church sometime on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Tuesday. Close it down and let's go where the men are in the community and sit and talk to them. And I believe that when you can build that foundation of trust and relationship, then you'll find men call you daddy and not the Don daddy, because he's speaking from a point of influence and impact.
Oh,
see those, Dr. Courtney. That's awesome. Sometimes I think that the answers that we have for the solutions to some of what we're facing are sometimes far less complicated than we make them out to be. You made the statement of saying, go where the men are. I remember the late Dr. Reverend Rob of New Life Assembly there on Constant Spring Road had a 100-man choir. Some churches can't even find 50 men in it. And I asked him the question, Rev Rob, how do you achieve this? And he said, he just went to the men and asked them. I said, it can't be that simple. And he said, well, that's what I did. And if, again, it's about relationship. We're talking about mental disorders, though, bipolarism, schizophrenia.
Courtney,
Yeah.
Before we go there are some messages that I think we want to just read them and get some feedback. Rosemary Vassal, I think men fail to seek help when they need it psychologically. Their saying is men don't cry and they should tough out things. Myth. That's one there. Janet, true, society looks down on men if they cry and call them soft. Thank you. Yes,
Pastor Rosemary Vassal says they keep things inside too much, so you don't know what they're thinking about. I'm happy to hear these comments because indeed, far too long we have been saying this, and one of my beliefs is women came from men. Genesis 1, Genesis 2, and God didn't take out man's emotion and place them in women. As a matter of fact, as men, we may have one or two more. So emotion cannot be connoted with being feminine, and we need to help to get our men to recognize that more and more. And not just our men, our women who are supposed to be, who are our support system. If the support system is also slant or leaned or bent in a particular way, then things won't stand up straight. You know, both our men and women need to come to a place of,
Yeah.
I see our
Time
producer
to
saying final comments.
Final comments. And Reverend Faulkner, Dr. Faulkner, could you share in your final comments? How can people connect with you, talk about it, and then Dr. Paul Smith?
Okay, so talk about it. You can find us on our handles on all social media platforms. Talk About It LTD. That's Talk About It LTD. And our website, talkaboutitltd.com. Right. So those are the ways that you can reach us. There are three modalities that you can access. As I said, voice, video, and text. So it's very important. I'm going to see if I can get the number. So if there's anyone who needs probably to call, we can do that. All right.
All right, Dr. Smith, thank you.
Yes, so the men can, as I encourage them to come in for and just talk to a professional. I have a ministry called Love and Ministry. It's on Facebook, so it's Larm Ministries, and they can reach out to us. I have a private practice in Mandeville. Every June when it is Father's Day, extended to Men's Day as well. And I'm the president of the Jamaican Psychological Association Southern Region, and we make sure that we cater to the needs of men alone. We encourage our counselors to go out and have conversation with our men and create that safe platform. So men, I just ask you to reach out and be empowered and build yourself and just make sure that you live the best life you can by unleashing that which is emotional, poisonous to you. And you can become better. You can do it. Many have sought help and are doing much, much better right.
If I may just add, Brother Courtney, quickly. Right, so you can download the app at the Google Play Store. You can do that. Talk About It. Right, and our number is 232-0248 if you need any further information. All right, thank you.
Well, we're gonna have a quick Brother Arnold a voice note. Let's hear Brother Arnold's voice note before we go.
Good afternoon, brother. My brother, yes, a part has been very thick, man. That was part of my meditation today and yesterday. The church need to go to the men, come out of the four walls, go into the gate of pitch a tent. Every function, every concert at the place, who can pay $5,000? You got them the places, Church need to take up that responsibility. Go out and win the men.
Thank you, Brother Arnold. And we also need to help persons to realize the church is the people, the building is the sanctuary. We need to teach that more often, and we take the church wherever we go as well. Gentlemen, thanks to you both, Reverend Dr. Courtney Faulkner, founder chairman of Talk About It Limited, and to Dr. Paul Smith, clinical psychologist, for being with us, gentlemen. Thank you for sharing and spending time with us today. We appreciate you guys. Continue to do and keep up the excellent work you're doing. We also say thanks to our programs director, Nadine Blair, and our producer, Jermaine Johnson. We end the show with this quote: "There is hope even when your brain tells you there isn't." John Green said that.
That's it for the show this week. Catch you next week, Wednesday, March 19, 2025. Same place, same time, inside the mailbox. Thanks again, gentlemen, Reverend Courtney Faulkner and Dr. Paul Smith. Thank you, brethren. Keep up the good work. The mailbox was brought to you today by Solid PVC Pipes, manufactured in Jamaica by Fosrich Company Limited. What we say? Monday up. Yes.
Monday next week, Wednesday, same time, same place. The mailbox.
Man, I am a man, I am a man, I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.